Hey, Barbara Moody for my first, or Barb Moody for the first live stream. I believe you joined the website today, Barb, so welcome out. So happy you could come out with us. Today I am answering questions related to learning how to read sheet music. But Fridays, so if this is your first time, to kind of give you a rundown of the schedule, well, actually, let's start out with this because this will kind of set the tone for today. I don't even know why it would set the tone, but I felt like saying that. It sounded like a good thing to say. All right, here we go. So if you go to my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com, and you go over here and click on the community tab, you can scroll down and, a little information about when we meet. Fridays and Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here's the calendar of when we meet. So Fridays are usually the bigger lesson. I teach a full lesson on Friday. It ranges anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes out of the whole hour. And then I spend the rest of the time answering questions, things like that. And then Sundays are reserved mostly for questions. I've decided to kind of keep the questions around a certain topic to kind of have a cohesiveness to the lesson rather than having these question and answer sessions be all over the place. But if you have some general questions today, I will answer those as well. I may just do it at the end here. Hey, first time from Tony here. All right, so to kind of elaborate a little bit further, Friday, the beginner's guide to modulations. And if you don't know what modulations are, it's about changing key. So changing the key from C major to G major. This one might be a little bit more advanced for some of those of us who are just joining our classroom recently, like Barb. But if you kind of want to get a jump on it, and understand a little bit more about that then that works. And then next week I'm answering your questions about rhythm, and I know all know how to read, so you can read through the rest of the calendar. If you want to attend a link, click on it, and then click on actually I don't want to click on that one because that one will actually bring us to where we are today. You click on the link to the live stream, and it takes you to it, and then what you want to do is you want to click on this set reminder button. And then Google or YouTube will hopefully remind you when the time is coming. Also, Facebook's a good thing to be. Our facebook.com/lessons on the web will also help you keep you up to date as well. I keep missing the beginning because the countdown video won't play. Okay. Sorry about that. The only thing I can recommend is to hit the refresh button, Barbara, and hopefully that will work out. Adria's here once again. Hey, from cold Wisconsin. Hello, and then Fuddy Duddy says hello from cold Bangor. I'm willing to bet it's a whole lot colder for Fuddy Duddy than anybody else. Although Rich is pretty far north, but he's not much further north than I am. New piano player, but already working on the Hungarian Dance by Brahms. It does have a modulation in it. All right, well, great. So next week when we talk about that, kind of give you some inside look on what to do. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about note reading? Let me think about where to start this off. So I'm going to give you a little guide right now on the path to mastering reading music, assuming you know nothing about it already. The first thing I recommend you learn about are the lines and spaces of the treble clef and the bass clef. So you want to memorize them separately. I would memorize the treble clef first. I would spend a few days on that, and then the bass clef. The reason I don't like to mix both clefs when you practice right away is because it's easy to kind of start to combine everything and get confused because the lines and spaces are different for each clef. So the first thing you want to do is you want to memorize the lines of the treble clef, which many of us know are E for this first note. Let me change the color here. Actually, let's do a blue. I feel like that guy on PBS who does all the drawings. But anyway, you got E, G, B, D, and F. You can also associate some kind of saying with this, like every good boy deserves fries. Anything like that works for you, you can remember. And then the spaces is the same thing, the same idea. You're just going to be memorizing what those will be. So they will be different, though, in terms of notes. There's only 4 spaces, by the way, and those spaces are F, A, C, E, obviously spelling face. So the first part in your guide is you want to learn about the lines and spaces for the treble clef, and then memorize the lines and spaces for the bass clef. I will link you to a video. It's actually in the description already. If you look in the description, it's like a continued learning section here on YouTube. And then it's like a note reading playlist or something like that. Check out for that. And view the lessons in there. There's one called, I believe, How to Read Music in One Lesson or something like that. And that goes over the lines and spaces and the very basic stuff you have to know about that. Building off of that, so say you spend a few weeks on that, you got to memorize. I can write a note here, and you can say, oh, well, clearly that's an A. Clearly that's an E. You get them perfect first try. Well, what you want to start doing is when you want to really start to learn to read music fast, is you want to look at them in clusters or intervals. So you're really looking at the distance between each of the notes. So say you have an F here, and then you have A, and then, I don't know, like D. Let's see where those wind up. Okay, so I have 4 notes here. I can read these notes individually, and actually, because it's fairly simple, I can do that without much trouble. But another way to do it is by looking at the distance between both notes. So if this one's on a space and this one's on the next space, it's a third. And by knowing what a third is, so as I was saying, you want to start looking at the distances between the notes. So that's a third away, this one's a fourth, and this one's a third. If you want to learn more about that, again, I have a lesson, How to Read Music Faster. You can look it up on YouTube. I'll try to link it to you in the description, which talks all about using these intervals to get, read music faster. From there, you want to use your knowledge of chords and scales to get even better. So obviously, if I have like this string of notes, see if I can get it up here. Not working with me today. Come on. There we go, finally. All right, give me a second there, Caleb. Then, after that, what you want to do is you want to start looking, using your knowledge of scales to read the notes even faster. So see here, I have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So right away, because I know that scale, I don't really have to think about all the individual notes, but rather I'm starting to look at them in clusters. So the tip for you is to go from individual notes to start reading notes in clusters of maybe 2 or 3 notes, and then try to cluster the notes together in larger groups. That's really the key to getting really, really good at reading sheet music, is reading notes in groups. And I'll provide some links for you in the description like I talked about, so you can learn more about that. So if you never learned how to read music before and you want to learn the path you need to take to get better at reading, then this is what I recommend you do. Okay, let's see here. Hey, Gene says, hi, this is my first live stream because it's about 3 a.m. I don't blame you, I mean. Caleb, I'm trying to see, the 44 in the beginning of the staff and the line in the horizontal line connected the notes, okay. Okay. Okay, I gotcha. I just wanted to make sure I understood your question pretty good. That's a really good question, Barb, so I'll give you some tips on that for a second. Okay, let's take a look here. Caleb says, please answer my question above and how it's played. So you're talking about probably all the way over here in the beginning here, where you have the 2 4s, and then you have, I got to show you what I'm talking about, would help. The 2 4s right here, right, 4 4, and then you're probably you might even be talking about this bracket that connects the staves. So all that bracket does is it's telling you that you're reading, both of these staves are grouped together, and most of the time it's just for piano, just to kind of tell you that you are reading the treble clef and the bass clef there. That's, your section for the piano. So that's all that means, is that you're grouping them together. The 4/4 is something called a time signature, and what I recommend you do is I want you to go on to YouTube. I do have it, I don't know if I have it in the description or not. But let's take a look. I want to get this. Okay. First rhythm lesson. Lessons on the web. Let me see what it's exactly called. I think it's called okay. The first lesson in rhythm for beginners, beats, time signature, and tempo. So if you type in first rhythm lesson, lessons on the web, it will come up. But hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to link you to it right now in the chat in case you have some trouble finding it. So everybody just give me a minute, or a second rather, and I'll link you to it. It should only take a couple of seconds, so hold on. Rich asked, do I miss performing or do I prefer teaching? A little bit of both, I guess. I prefer teaching a little bit more because it's a little less nerve-wracking. I do like performing, but I don't like performing all the time because there's always that level of stress getting ready for it. And that'll happen no matter how prepared you are. Now, the more prepared you are, the easier it'll be. But it's not always the case. Like, it's just you'll always have that little bit of nerves. And in a lot of cases, it's a good thing because it keeps you on your toes. But it's you always have that little bit of nerves behind you when you're performing. And, I would imagine over years of doing that, because I guess I kind of did that in college, you get tired of it after a while, at least for me. But I do like it getting ready for like a concert every once in a while. But I do prefer teaching for sure. Okay, great question here by Barb I want to get to. Barb asks, are there any tips reading ahead while you are playing? So our wonderful student Barb asks, are there any tips for reading ahead while you are playing? What a terrific question. So let's take a look at what we have going on here. So this is Happy Birthday, and it's a fairly easy song. So when you're first learning a piece that's very complicated, I can't really expect you to be able to read ahead. Believe it or not, though, when you're reading music, you should actually be looking a little bit ahead of where you actually are by a beat or two, maybe even a whole measure, if you can do that, because it'll just kind of help you process the music more fluidly. Now, if you've never done this before, it may seem impossible, but it's not. So the first tip I have for you, what do you think it is? You've known me a long time. Maybe you have, if you've been looking at the channel. What is the number one thing I almost always say that you should do to make things easier? And you can apply this to anything. Well, how about slow it down, right? Because if you're playing at lightning speed, you're not going to be able to look ahead of where you are. It also helps to know the song a little bit, or the piece rather, I should say, before you start looking ahead a bit, because if you're looking at something really complicated at first, chances are you're not going to be able to look ahead quite a bit, because a lot of your brain power's going to go into wherever you're looking on the music. But if I'm reading this, I'm going very, very slow, right? I'm starting this first measure. By the time I get to this chord here, I'm actually a whole measure over, where it says birthday, where I'm reading. And because I'm going slow, I can do that and handle it. Now, when I hit this note, my eyes are already a whole measure over, pretty much. And it just makes things flow a little bit easier. Now, the real key, though, is when you're between lines. So I'm at the top of this, or the last measure of this top line, going into the next line. So your eyes now have to go from where you are to the next line. Now, one thing I want to tell you, though, is it really helps to know your chords, scales, notes, any information you can grab, because the key to this is really taking a snapshot of it with your mind. It has a lot to do with memory as well, being able to just kind of look at it and memorize it, but that's kind of hard if you don't know all the things I just mentioned. So I'm taking a look at this last measure of this first line, and I know that, this is outlining an A major chord, A major 7. And because I know that, I can kind of look at it real quick and say, okay, that's what's going on. And now I'm already looking at the next line. It's kind of hard to do this and talk at the same time. So you're always looking ahead at where you are. The main key is to go slow, practice your scales, your chords, anything that can really help you look at notes in groups, like I talked about a minute ago, so you can process the notes better. So those are the few points that I have on reading ahead of where you are in the music. You want to start practicing reading ahead where you are in the music, but you might struggle a lot with it at first, and that's very, very normal because you're probably used to just looking at wherever you are, and it does take a little bit of extra brain power, and especially with the memory, to kind of snapshot the measure you're looking at and looking ahead to where you're going from there. So that's what I recommend on how to tackle that issue. Okay, our student attending our live stream, wonderful student, of course, asks, let's see, Tony asks, what do you think about reading clefs other than bass and the treble for orchestration? All right, terrific question as always. So let me kind of show you an example here. And if you're not in the know, you may be thinking there's more than the treble clef and the bass clef. Well, yes, there is. And the first thing I want to mention is if you're a piano player, you generally don't really need to know these. I would know how they work, though. If you are learning orchestration, then you do want to learn these because you'll be writing something for, I don't know, like cello or an instrument that will use one of these other clefs, alto or tenor clef. So you will want to learn how these work. I'm going to briefly go over how this works right now because, a lot of piano players here on the channel are probably curious as to what's going on. So here's alto clef. It's a weird, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a sideways M. And the idea of both of these clefs, they'll look almost identical, as you'll find. The alto clef here, the key is that this line right here in the middle of the clef, that is C. Now, I don't remember if it's middle C or what, but that one's C, and then you read the notes up and down from there. So this one's obviously a D, that one's an E, that's an F. You can also think about it as that it's treble clef, except all the notes are shifted up one. So if it's a C, it's a D. If it's a D, it's an E, things like that. I think you get the idea. Like if I draw this here, normally that would be an F, but that would be a G with the alto clef. So I just want to tell you that's how it works. It works the same way if you had it. Actually, you would only have one of those clefs. You wouldn't have it in the bass clef as well. Because the whole point of treble clef and bass clef is to really give you a range. I don't know if it's specifically made for the piano, but it gives you like a range. And both clefs meet together here, as you probably know, at middle C. So middle C is really between both clefs where they join together. Okay, let me show you the tenor clef. It works almost exactly the same way. There's really not much to it. Okay, here we go. Here's tenor. And it does work exactly the same way, except the difference now is that this is C, right? And then, this would be D, E. So now everything, you can actually think about this like treble clef, but now everything is down one note. So, if this was a D before, it's a C now. If this was an E before, it's a D now. So everything is shifted over that way. But as a piano player, you don't really need to memorize what the notes are. Like you don't have to be professional at reading alto clef, but you should know as a musician what these clefs are about and generally how they work, that the middle of the clef is C, and then you read up and down from there. Thank you for the answer. You're welcome. Very welcome, Tony. Let's see. I don't even remember. What was your question, Tony? Oh, okay. Exactly that. We found it hard to think of songs, so 12-bar blues. Let me look up a 12-bar blue thing that maybe you can print out as like something really easy. Okay. So all I did is I went to Google Images and I typed 12-bar blues piano. Actually, maybe we'll search this in the regular search. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we'll use the images, right? So this is an example of the 12-bar blues. Let me make sure this is right, though. Okay, so it looks like they put it twice. But if you type in 12-bar blues piano into Google, you should see this come up in the images. Try to see if you can play this along with your guitar player. I assume your guitar player knows how to play chords, and actually double check with them. So say if you want them to play a C chord, that they can do that, and that's the same C chord that you're playing. So obviously when you meet together, say play a C chord, they play a C chord, you play a C chord. It should match up. It shouldn't sound like this. If it sounds like that, you have it wrong. But if it matches real nice, then you have it right. And then see if you both can play through these chords together on the piano. And that's really the first key. Really, the only thing I would concentrate on at first is being able to play together. Don't try anything wild yet. Don't try anything crazy. Once you and your friend practice this for a couple of days, couple of weeks, depending on how much time you have, then see if you can start to improvise a melody over this line. I have a... Oh, hold on. I would do that to see if you can play along with your friend at first. I do have a lesson for you. Let me think. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Give me a second here. Let me look this up. We'll tune it back that way. Let's see. Improv Exercise lessons on the web. Okay, so if you type in Improv Exercise lessons on the web into YouTube, there will be this first thing that comes up that says the easiest piano improvisation exercise for beginners. That talks about how to use arpeggios and things like that to make your chords a little bit more interesting. So I would build off just playing chords together, and then trying to experiment around, trying to play some melodies and things like that. Okay, you're a beginner, but he's intermediate. Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much, Mike. I'm glad you appreciated that, or you got something out of that. It's more important. Okay, Barbara says, I don't get your answer, which is okay. I mean, which octave is the clef in? Well, it's in the octave, I suppose. Because, right, if you had... Let's take a look at it real quick. So say you have the alto clef here, right? So this is middle C. So that note is middle C, and that obviously will be, right there, as we know all about middle C, right? So we have to figure out now, like what octave this really covers, we have to figure out what note is the bottom note down here. And knowing my intervals, that's an F. Because normally it'd be an E, so that's an F. So it ranges from right here, and then this top line up here would be G. So the answer to your question for the alto clef is generally it's covering the notes in around the middle of the piano. It's pretty centered, right? So C is the very center of the clef, and then you have the notes bridging out right here. Now remember, you're not going to have to play alto clef with your piano, so you really don't have to worry about it, because most of the time, actually all the time, you're going to have your treble clef for notes up this way, bass clef for notes down that way. What alto clef is really for is for an instrument that plays, I believe cello is one of them, that has notes, a lot of the notes that are in the middle of the range here of the total notes. Now, the tenor clef, this one, is very similar to the one we talked about, except except you're not going to be able to go up as high, since the C is up closer towards the top of the staff. So you have C right here now. So you can have C, D, E, and then E there. So that's as high as it goes, but it does go further down this way. So it's for instruments that play around the middle of the range, but a little bit on the lower side. Since a lot of instruments can't play the full spectrum of notes like the piano can, they stick to a certain register or range, and that's where the range will be. The viola clef, says Luchingador. Thank you very much. Let's see. We got Mike Henley asks, how'd you make a melody, or would there be another lesson? So I would really have to make a lesson around that for the most part. What I would experiment around with is using something called let me see if I can remember. Yeah, I do remember it. You want to learn something called, is it the whole tone scale? No, it's not. Pentatonic scale. So when you're playing this with your friend, you want to learn this scale on the piano. This is just for you. You're going to play C, D, E, G, A, C. C, D, E, G, A, C. And then as you're playing the chords, first of all, just play the chords with your friend for now. But once you get good, you can play the chords in your left hand. And you can improvise using this scale, C, D, E, G, A, C. That's the pentatonic, major pentatonic scale. And by improv, you can play the scale in order. You can play the scale out of order. You can play the scale from the bottom to the top. So experiment around with different ways and different rhythms on how to play that. So I'm going to play the chords in my left hand. Oops. Oops. I'm used to playing the one in B flat. Oops. So start practicing around with that whole tone scale as you're playing the chords and see if you can find a melody that fits. This part really is a lot of trial and error. Basically, the whole thing about improv when you first start out is you're going to be making up a melody in your right hand. And whenever you make up a melody, you kind of want to pick a scale that it goes around, because that'll make sure that the notes sound nice with the chords you're playing below. So you want to start out with that. You could even start with a major scale, honestly. Oops. Well, that one will have to be a little bit different. So just like that, use a scale and come up with something on the spot. Let's take a look here. How do I play trills? Says Gabriella. Welcome out, Gabriella. So happy you come out and join us. I have a lesson for you. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that. And again, it's trial and error. So if I practice it a few times over, I would get it sounding better and better. And then I would, you can jot down the ideas that work if you want. Okay, here we go. Trills. So I have a lesson on YouTube here already. So if you type in trills, lessons on the web, I'm not sure why the screen is so far over that way. It's very strange. Hold on. That's so odd. Why is that happening? Anyway, if you type in trills and lessons on the web, it will come up with a lesson with my face on it called How to Play Trills on the Piano. So I think that'll explain it a lot better than I can right now. Let me link everybody to that in the chat. So give me a second. Okay. All right, we're back. Not that I really went anywhere. All right, so there's your lesson on trills. Are there any left-handed patterns for cadences or right hand? Yeah, let me take a look here for an answer to your question. Cheryl's back again. How you doing, Cheryl? Hopefully you're doing well. Oh, I typed in troll. No, it says, do you mean trolls lessons on the web? No. I was mentioning the Google thing here. Okay, how left-handed patterns for cadences. Let's take a look. Here you go. You can try out these. I typed in, what did I type in? So I went to Google and I typed in left-hand cadence patterns. And actually, if you check out this first one here, it's www3, really, www3.northern.edu. And they have some major cadence patterns there you can practice. They look pretty standard to me, to be honest. These are the same as a lot of the ones I've seen in a lot of the books. And it looks like then you want to play them, in the different keys. So I'd start with that. Let me link you to that so you know where to find it. I mean, sure you can find it on your own, but let me make sure you get the right one. Okay. Okay, so there's your left-handed cadence pattern. So I would start with those. Like I said, they're very, very standard. They're nothing out of the ordinary for sure. All right, hopefully everybody is having a great night. Let me know any other questions you have, either about playing, reading music or playing music. We'll hang out here for another few minutes here. I'll let some other people have a chance to answer or ask some questions here. Hold on a minute. How you play trills, okay. Okay, Barbara says, I love a lesson on accompanying chord cadences with other to use when accompanying yourself singing. Oh, did you check out the lesson we had on Friday, Barb? Let me get you a link to that. Okay, Barb says, yes, I did. Well, I can make another one on that for you. How do I play slurs? Oh, so you want one like specifically on these chord cadences. Okay, so let me think about that. Yeah, we could do a lesson on that. Let me write that down real quick. Okay, I see. So I never got the cadences on that lesson, Barb, but I did talk, some just very basic tips on how to sing and play at the same time. But yeah, I got that written down now. Okay, let's see. How to play slurs, right? So Chingador here has a question. Let's see. Okay, slurs. Let me find a piece with slurs in it. And then we'll talk business. So let me take a look here. All right, I'm looking for a good example on how to do this. Let me take a look here. Okay, so here we have the first line of the second movement of the Pathetique Sonata. And there's a lot of slur lines. Slur lines are these arcing lines over a lot of notes, and they're to really help this thing called musical phrasing. So when you speak, as I am now, there you put commas and periods in certain places. This helps create phrases and sentences and complete ideas. Phrases or legato markings do the exact same thing. They help you kind of blend together notes and put little gaps or little spaces between musical ideas to complete a musical idea. And really what they help do is they really help the music go from sounding clunky, like just note to note, to really sounding like complete musical ideas. So I'm going to play it first without this first line, without any slurs at all. So as you can see, it was very repetitive. Bump, 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 bump. And it didn't really have a whole lot of musicality to it. So now I'm going to take a look at just this right hand. I have a slur going from this first note here all the way to this note right here at the end of the second measure. So as soon as I get done that note, that's the last note that's slurred, I'm going to pick up the pedal a little bit to create a little bit of a gap in sound. You can also use pedal when you're doing slurs. You don't want to overdo it, but pedaling does help you kind of complete the slur lines in a lot of cases. So with the slur lines, I'm now connecting the notes, meaning that I'm only playing the next note once. I'm only letting go of one note once the next one's hit. I'm not like having a gap in between each note. I'm actually gently gliding between each note. So putting this in, oops, I messed it up. Now I'm at the end of the second measure. I'm going to lift up, complete the sound. I'm not going to make this big of a break. I'm kind of being dramatic here. And then the next measure, these are all slurred together. Oops. That's it. Sorry about that. And then I'm at the end of that measure. There's no slur line between the two measures. So I'm going to pick up real quick off the pedal, have a little break in the sound. So all together it's going to sound like this. Hear that little break in the sound? Now I'm going to play the treble clef and bass clef together. Bass clef, I'm doing the same thing. I'm slurring the notes together as they are. Heard the little gap in there. There's going to be another gap right here. And then I messed up the notes. So that's basically how it goes. So some very simple tips on playing legato is that all the notes underneath the legato, you can think of it as an umbrella, are all smoothly connected together. And like I said, what I mean by that is you're only letting go of that first note. Once you play the next note, it creates like kind of a gliding feeling rather than a separated feeling. Just like that. All right, so hopefully that helped you out. Let me take a look at Barb, or somebody's question here. Hey, Kawhi could make it today. They say that can never watch your live streams due to the time zones. I just bought a Roland. Well, congratulations. That's probably a pretty nice keyboard there. Okay. Gabriella says, do I have any tips on sight reading rhythm? Yes, do it more often. But let me... so like when you sight read a piece, so say I'm sight reading the piece we were just talking about. Honestly, when you are sight reading all together with the notes, you're also sight reading rhythm too, right? Because you're trying to get the correct rhythm the best you can. But honestly, you could take any piece and just boil it down to its rhythm and see if you could replicate that. Let me see, though, if I can find something a little bit better for you, because I want to give you a little bit better of an answer than that. So let's see. Sight reading a rhythm. There's actually a lot of great sight reading resources online. I don't know about this one, though. That's cool. All right. That's awesome. Okay, so here, I don't know if it eventually makes you sign up, but all I did was I typed in, what was it? Sight reading rhythms. And it's actually, if you go to practicesightreading.com, all one word, and then you can go and scroll down and hit start practice here under rhythm. It looks like it gives you a bunch of rhythm exercises you can practice, that you can practice sight reading. So I recommend, actually it'll even play it back for you. Oh, it won't do it because it's on the laptop and it's hooked up weird. But anyway, yeah, go to practicesightreading.com and click on the rhythm section. And as far as I know, it looks free to me. And then you can play it back as well to make sure you're playing the right thing. So that's what I recommend you do, is you sight read, but you do it just with rhythms. And there are actually a lot of other places online you can find things like this for sight reading. So that's what I recommend. Karen says, oh no, only just got notification of this live session. Unfortunately, YouTube does that sometimes. I'm working on notifying people a little bit better when we do meet. I did forget to put on Facebook that we were meeting right now, but I did mention it earlier today there. Barb says, cool, that's a great resource. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, Karen. It's an FP30, which I think are pretty nice. It was pretty expensive for my first keyboard, as I expected, with no experience. Do you know any good songs for beginners? Well, it depends on how much of a beginner you are. If you don't know anything about playing piano, yet you want to stick maybe to some nursery rhymes. One thing that I plug on the channel quite often, it's not even something I made, but I do like this because if you are just starting out and you're looking for songs to play in an order that makes sense for you as a beginner, right? Because you can't just start playing Fur Elise right away. least in most cases, or start playing the entertainer. You need to work your way up to there. And what I recommend to do for something like this is I recommend you go to Amazon.com. Actually, you know what? If you go in the description, you scroll down where it says support the channel and learn more about piano. The first link is to my website and courses. The second link says recommended keyboards, books, and such. Click on that and you'll be able to find this book here. If you actually buy it from that link, it'll help me out a little bit since Amazon will give me like a little kickback. Not much, and it doesn't cost you anything else, but it's totally up to you. But what you want to look for is Alfred Adult Level 1. And it's this pink book right here. I would pick this up first, honestly, if you're looking for some songs to play, because this will kind of lead you up to playing some pretty good songs. At the end of this book, you're going to be playing The Entertainer. You're going to be playing like Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, the Ballad of Gilligan's Island, things like that. So if you want to go from knowing like playing nothing to playing some decent stuff, start there. And then the level 2 just kind of continues that as well. I think it's a green book that you can find also on the page I mentioned. So that's where I start there. Things like for release, yeah, beginners can tackle for release, but like I said, I'm not sure exactly what kind of beginner you are, so I can't exactly tell you exactly what to do, but I think that book will help you out. Okay, so I went with for release, so I'm stuck around the 20th measure. Feel like I bit off more than I could chew. So yeah, exactly my point. So you want to start out on the easier end and work your way up to for release. You might want to check out, what is it called? Bach's Prelude in C major. That's like this one. And yes, James Bastian level 1 is good as well. That's actually the series I learned off of. So that is Bach's Prelude in C major. Look that up. That one is a little bit easier than for release, so check that out first. Or get the book that I mentioned. Karen says, I feel like I'm late for school. Well, that's okay. No detention for you. Let's see. Okay, great. All right, everybody. We got like 5 minutes left until the hour. I want to do something here real quick. So just give me a second. I want to give you some info. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our lesson today. One thing I definitely want you to do if you want to learn more about reading music, which of course you do, right? You want to head over to the channel page, youtube.com/lessons on the web, and you want to scroll down a bit to where it says learn and improve your ability to read music. So you want to check out, it's a whole playlist of lessons actually, how to read music and then how to read music faster, reading music supercharged, and then sight reading. You can learn a lot more about reading music there. And if you really want to take things to the next level, visit my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com. I'll make sure to include a link for you to learn more about my music courses and how they can help you learn more than ever before. So thanks, everybody. This has been You Know Who from You Know Where, and I'll talk to you in the next lesson. Thank you so, so much. All right, everybody, I'm still here. That was just kind of an outro for, cutting it up, or cutting the lesson up. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that, Baggy. Master Tim, this may be a bit off topic, but when I try to read pieces on your courses, I become concerned about the fingering on paper. How should I approach it to not get things wrong? Um, I would write it down. If you could, write me an email so I can answer this in a little bit more detail since we're here on the last final few minutes. But some general things is to write down your fingering. You want to have the fingering, be in a way that makes sense for you, and you want to make sure that your fingers fit within that fingering. I do have something called the piano fingering guide that you can look up on YouTube. But if you want to learn more about this, or if you write down a fingering and you want me to double check it or give you a recommended fingering for something, let me know and I can help you out with that. Some of the earlier courses I do write in the fingering for that. And the fingering I would concentrate on after you get the notes down. Get the notes down first and then get the fingering down. Don't neglect the fingering though, because that will bite you later on when you're trying to progress. But if you want more info on that, either ask me in another stream or email me. Email me is probably the best way in this case. You're very welcome, Nico Senpai, Kawaii. Okay, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. All right, so if you are attending the live stream, you're part of our awesome community, our awesome classroom, and you're like, hey, I want to contribute in some way to help make the future lessons on the web very, very bright, make these lessons better, stronger, and smarter than ever before. Well, there's a few ways to do it. The first and best way, my favorite way, is to actually go to my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com. Here, we're going to type it in together. It's already in my browser. And I'll make sure I do have it linked in the description for you, where I have over 20 courses that I've made to help you learn even a lot more about piano and music. So if you're a big fan of what you see over here on the YouTube channel and you want to take things to the next level, this is the perfect way to do this. And this is one of my favorite ways of contributing to the channel, because not only do I get something out of it, out of you signing up, but you get something out of it as well. So it's perfect win-win situation. Some other ways is you can leave a super chat if you're here live right now. This is located right here. So there's your super chat. And really you click that and then you can leave like a couple of dollars of a donation or something like that. You can write $2 or whatever. But only if you want to. So that's another way. And then and then if you check out the description, there will also be mentioning like recommended keyboards and things like that and books. If you buy anything from there, that Amazon store, that will also help out the channel as well. It won't cost you a single thing. But if you don't have any money to give, that's totally fine. You just being here and being a part of our community, saying something in the chat, or commenting on one of the videos, or just watching the videos really means a lot to me, and it really, really does help the channel in a big way. So if you want to contribute that way, that is perfectly fine, and that works out really, really well. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I really love coming out here to help you learn more and more about piano and getting to know a lot of you better. Even though I only see your names and they may be your icon, each week I do feel like I learn a little bit more about you, and I'm sure you learn more about me too. And it's just so awesome to have this whole group of students all focused on learning piano, and it's been a wonderful, I guess we're almost on 4 years now. Well, I started in 13. Oh, we're going on 5 years probably here in March, right? 13, 5, 18. Yep, sounds right to me. So Karen says, your courses are worth every penny. Thank you very much. In case anyone is wondering. Let's see. Thank you very much, Karen, for that, by the way. Patreon. I do have a Patreon. I'm not sure what to do with the Patreon right now, to tell you the truth. Because it feels tacked on to me, and I do want to do something with the Patreon, but I'm not really sure what to do with it yet. I'll give you a Patreon link soon. I mean, you can look me up on Patreon and you can donate if you want, but I want to work on the page a little bit, update it, and kind of figure out how Patreon will fit in with what we're trying to do. The Patreon will probably be good as like a super chat kind of thing for people who can't attend the live stream. So I will put some work into kind of resurrecting the Patreon. I don't even know if I have any, any patrons on there donating right now. So I'll have to look into that for you because I have had some questions on how do I donate if I can't leave a super chat or something like that. So I need to figure that out. I was looking into that the other day and trying to figure out the best way to do that. Patreon would be better, says Julius. Okay, so maybe I'll set up a Patreon for anybody that wants to donate a couple of dollars here or there. And maybe you're not interested in the courses or you don't want to spend that much. That works for me. So let me put a little work into the Patreon. Let me resurrect it, and then I'll give you a link to it, and then we'll all be good to go. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's been a pleasure as always. This has been Tim from Lessons on the Web. Have a great week. Fortunately, yeah, Super Chats does not show up on iPads and a lot of other things. So you know what? I'm going to put some work into that Patreon like I talked about. Bring it back from the dead, and then people have a way where they can contribute back to the channel. So thanks everybody for coming out. We're going to be meeting again on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're talking about modulations and changing key, things like that. So make sure you don't miss out because it's going to be a great lesson. So thank you very much. Try to donate in Super Chat, but no PayPal option. Oh, really? So Super Chat's very limited, so I'm going to have to figure that out. So Julius, Barb, and anybody else who is interested in the Patreon, that's what I will do. So thanks, everybody, for coming out. Have a great week. I'll talk to you again on Friday or, posting throughout the week. And, yeah, have a great one. And I'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for coming out today. You're welcome, Karen. Karen says, I will try to arrive on time next class. All right. Thank you very much, Karen. Have a great night. Two dots adds what, half of that value? I'm actually really not sure. I'd have to look that up.